Well, hello and welcome to our final Faith, Philosophy and Life of Sin and Forgiveness. Yeah, I know that might make you sad, but don't worry, they're all still on the great YouTube channel of Faith, Philosophy and Life, and you can still watch them as many times as you want, along with Origins and Meaning and Good and Evil and Sin and Forgiveness, and that's that one, and... No, Sin and Forgiveness, that's right, and Life and Death. So there you go. That'll keep you busy for a bit. And there's obviously Judaism as well at GCSE for those of you that are doing that. So my question on our final Faith, Philosophy and Life, yes, it's very sad. Sadder for me than for you, no doubt, because you can just turn me off whenever you need to. Pupils in my class can't, so you'll feel very sorry for them. Is, are we secular or are we religious? Secular being non-religious. As a society, are we secular or are we religious? On this screen here next to me there's a famous picture of a bust. This was done by the Humanist Association and it was sent around London. There's probably no gods, now stop worrying about it and enjoy your life. Many people would agree with that statement. However, on the picture on the right we've also got the House of Lords, where there are bishops, and they're the people in the white and the black that you can see there. And they're some of the lawmakers of this land and some of our checks and balances in our Houses of Parliament, Houses of Commons and Houses of Lords. Obviously we've only got the Houses of Parliament, also known as the Houses of Commons, and the House of Lords. If you don't know what I'm talking about with that, then that's a conversation for your teachers, because I really don't want to go into citizenship now. It's very important, be aware of it, but equally you're not going to be examined on it, so let's focus on what we need to. So go and grab your pen and paper, because here's our cheesy intro music. So our title today is What is Mission and Evangelism? What is mission and evangelism? And today we're going to explore the difference between mission and evangelism. It's going to be a good outcome if you can explain what mission and evangelism is. It's going to be great if you can explain why mission and evangelism is important to Christians. And it's going to be even better if we can evaluate if Christians should really try to convert others or just serve in the local community. We've got a lot we're covering today, and there's a lot in the description below that you will need to access. So I'm not shying away from that. It is difficult at this point in the course, but you never know. After this, it may just be revision for you. So we've got a mix and match exercise, media clips, some documents to look at, and some worksheets to work through as well. Now you need to obviously keep an eye on the time, because I need you to make sure you get this lesson done in whatever lesson time you've got, and maybe even a homework as well. So to start off with, we do need to make sure that we know these definitions. Mission is to help someone because you are a Christian, you want to show God's love. Evangelism is trying to convert them. So someone who's a missionary, someone who goes on mission, is there someone who wants to help somebody. And evangelism is you go to help to try and convert someone into your faith. It's really important that you are aware of those two terms. So if you don't know those, get them written down. If you do know them, don't write them down. I always say that, because there's no point writing down what you already know. Okay, so why do Christians feel they need to evangelize? So I've got this from Total Faith Media. I'd like you to watch this and maybe make a few notes while it is on. So why do Christians feel that they need to evangelize, try and convert other people? So let's watch this together and make a few notes as you need.
As Christians, when people bring up the topic of evangelism, what do you think that means? Well, in my experience, people usually end up in one of two camps. Camp 1 says you need to talk about Jesus and live a life that's consistent with what you believe, and Camp 2 says all you have to do is live a good life. It'll speak for itself. Well, first of all, it's a big jump to assume that anyone can live a good life, don't you think? I mean, Romans 3:10 through 11 says, none is righteous, no, not one, and no one does good, not even one. But that doesn't convince you. In Mark 10, a man comes up to Jesus and kneels down before him and says, good teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus responds promptly with, why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone. Now, not only was Jesus subtly claiming to be God here, he's making it pretty clear that nobody is good except for him, hence the no one is good part. But this is the sideshow to the main event, folks, so step right up and let's get down to it. And let's assume when Camp 2 says good life, they just mean if you live a visible, godly life, people will, just by watching you, understand all they need to know about God. Okay, let's play that out, shall we? And let's ask Bruce if he can help us. Hey, Bruce, hey. So Bruce grabs a Mormon, a Jehovah's Witness, and a Christian, and he tells you to follow each of those folks around, and after simply watching them, you'll know all you need to know about God. Now, each goes to a place every week and sits among like-minded folks. Each person prays, each treats you with respect, each loves his family, is honest with his money, and is basically a nice person. So, which God do you pick based on just watching them? Who's right? How do you know? What do you compare unless they tell you why they do what they do? Talking, it seems, becomes critical. No doubt nature reveals much about the invisible attributes of God, but how do you know exactly what he requires of you? I mean, who he really is and what his ultimate plan is without some kind of specific revelation from him? I mean, how would you know if your mother wanted you to paint the left wall of the garage red if it wasn't specifically communicated to you in some way, usually by writing a note or speaking to you? So, what did God deem the best way to communicate the specifics of his will? Did he summon porpoises to do a modern dance? Did he draw word pictures in the clouds? No. To communicate precisely the things he wanted you to know, he intervened throughout history and spoke through men, ultimately moving some of them to write the Bible. That is, he spoke and he wrote a note. How would we know if God created the heavens and the earth in 6 days, that Adam and Eve were created in a perfect world, but their rebellion brought sin and death into the world, that it's the grace of God through faith in Jesus alone that saves us? How would you know that Jesus died on the cross and resurrected from the grave? How would you know any detail about God and his word and his plan if nobody told us? Well, we wouldn't. We couldn't. And that's why you got to tell people things. You just can't hope people will catch on by watching you live a so-called good life. It's just not enough. Ultimately, you got to tell them why you live that way. But don't just take my word for it, my inquiring Berean band of misfits. Read along in Romans 10. And how can they know who to trust if they haven't heard of the one who can be trusted? And how can they hear if nobody tells them? Jesus himself definitively declares in Matthew 28, go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and teaching them to observe all that I commanded you. It's kind of hard to baptize in the name of somebody without actually saying the name, and it's pretty difficult to teach people to observe commandments without telling them what those commandments are, right? I mean, I could go on until my mouth falls off, but suffice to say, Christians are commanded to live a life worthy of the calling, which irrefutably includes things like giving reasons and answers for our hope and engaging in a conversation about Christ. So this idea that you never have to speak out about your faith and all you have to do is live a good life and people will catch on has been debunked. Adios.
Okay, so we also need to be aware for some reason what humanists think with regards to this, or at least non-Christian festivals. So there are a number of things behind me, and what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to answer those 3 questions that you see at the top of the screen. Name one non-Christian festival in the UK and how it's celebrated. Number 2, what rights do religious people have in the workplace? And number 3, how may a humanist or atheist express their way of living? So have a look at that now and try and just get those 3 questions answered. Just in 3 sentences will do the trick. Don't spend ages on this, you don't need to. Okay, so the Catholic Church really breaks it down into 3 different things. They say that you need to do mission locally, nationally, and globally. Okay, and they're sort of the 3 sort of main aspects that the Catholic Church goes down. Now, again, you don't need to know all of these bullet points. There are an awful lot of them there, and you're never going to be asked to do that. But what you may be asked in the exam is the B question, which is to describe how Catholics do mission. And at that point, you need to be aware of at least 3 of these. So what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to choose one thing from each box and write down how it helps with either mission, evangelism, or gaining salvation. Now again, if you don't know what I'm talking about with salvation, you really by this point need to go back and watch my lesson on salvation, but it means how you're saved, how you get to heaven. So pause me now. You need one from each box written down and explain how it either helps with mission or evangelism or helping people go to heaven. Okay, now our next task is huge, right? This I'm not going to underplay the importance of this task, because there's a lot here. So there are 3 worksheets linked in the information below. The worksheet on the left are some quotes of what the church says, the Catholic Church this is, says about why mission and evangelism is important. And there's 8 questions on there that you do need to work through. The sheet in the middle are some quotes which the church has put out with regards to mission and evangelism. What you need to do is you need to read each quote and to write down one word that you think would summarize each of those. So you're literally reading it through and choosing one word that you think is most important. Now there are some hints at the bottom of that page for you. So when you've got that might not be too difficult, but it's going to take you a few moments for you to work that one through, because you need to read it really clearly. So read it clearly, and then basically you're summarizing it into one word, which is more complicated than it sounds. And then you've also got the sheet on the right where it's a double pages sheet on mission and evangelism and different ways that the church would do mission and evangelism around the UK and the world, and why it does what it does. Now, ideally this should take you to nearly at the end of the lesson. For those of you that have got homework, there is a extra question coming up in a moment in terms of an exam question. I wouldn't expect pupils in my classes to get that done unless you're Spiegel Gales and you get all of that done really quickly. So pause me now and then come back to me when you're done. So we said a good outcome would be if you can explain what mission and evangelism is. Hopefully now you've got that really secure. Great if you can explain why mission and evangelism is important to Christians, and even better if you can evaluate if Christians should really try to convert people or not. Now, as I said earlier, there is a question here which I do think you should write down, even if you're not going to answer it or even plan an answer. So this is a D question. What I'm going to suggest, the question is this: Christians should seek to serve others, not to convert them to their faith. So it's the important part of a Christian to help other people rather than try and convert them. Now I'm going to suggest that you use FARMI. You don't have to, but that's just the solution I've used before, which is for, against, rebuttal, my opinion, if everyone. And you can use PEAK with that, point, evidence, explanation, change, with your for and against. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then again, have a look at some of my exam technique video clips that I've got, or at least speak to your teachers. There's no exam format you must use for these questions, but that's just a format I think that may be beneficial for you. So there's your question. You may choose to do it, you may not, unless your teacher's directed you to. And please get everything photographed. Please send through to your teacher. It's been an absolute pleasure to go through this unit with you. Do take care of yourself, stay safe, wash your hands, God bless you, and no doubt I'll see you for some other lessons, but have a look through the channel on some of those GCSE topics for any revision that you need, and all the best for the future.